Welcome everyone to this Questback webinar about team pulses. My name is Toni Paloheimo. I work here in the Questback Nordic organization, working a lot with our clients and trying to dream about a different and better future for our employees and our customers. So essentially what I'm trying to do in my work is to work with our customers and improving the experiences both for their employees and their customers. That is a topic that actually covers quite well the things we are going to discuss today related to team pulses. To start with, we can travel a little bit back in time. I know many of you have most likely heard about the project Google did some years back, where they were basically trying to figure out what is separating great teams from not that great teams. And there were a lot of assumptions that they had in the beginning, a lot of guesses. But one interesting thing that you probably haven't heard about that project was the name of that project. And the name of that project was Project Aristotle. As you perhaps might have heard, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher, and he was especially interested in virtues. What constitutes a virtuous life, and how could we all live virtuous lives? I think it was a clever and name that was given for the Google's project on purpose, because ultimately they were after the team virtue or the virtues. So what would it make for a team to stand out? What they figured out were a couple of things, but the one that stood out the most and that has been widely published and communicated and discussed ever after was psychological safety. And I think psychological safety gives us actually a really nice framework to think about the team pulses as well. But to start with, I think it's a good idea to little bit look at how typical team pulse solutions look like. This is one that we are offering from Questback. It's called QB. And essentially what happens is that every Friday, each team member will get a short email to ask how was their week. Simple 5-scale smiley answer from terrible to fabulous. After that, everyone will be asked to categorize their response. So, why was my week good, or why wasn't my week that good? And there are a couple of alternatives to pick from, let's say, typical categories or arguments behind those feelings. But the third step in that process is the most important one. It's a simple, short question: what could be done to make things better? So if we think about the message from the reflection perspective, the idea of that Friday message is basically to stop us all for a little while, to reflect on what happened during that week, that is something from which we could learn. Something that would give us some ideas on how we could make things better. And I've highlighted the word things here because it doesn't necessarily need to be any related to any particular one category. Doesn't necessarily need to be related to my well-being at work. It could be relate to many of things: processes, ways of working, products, customers. So the signal QB is giving to every team member at the end of the week is a signal of reflection, and in order for us to bring out new ideas and learn from what we have been doing. The next step in a typical process is that, of course, you have the results, and the results are available for everyone. So everyone in the team is able to see, like, okay, what's the trend, and how are we doing? And most importantly, everyone is able to see the comments as well. So the fundamental idea with the Team Pulse solution is to facilitate discussion within the team. And it's really good idea to have a weekly practice for doing that together with your team. Nowadays, we do it virtually. At some other times, we can do that face to face. So gather around those comments and ideas that we had and discuss what could we be doing next. And really important, and to me, this is the most important part of Team Pulse solution, is to act. So basically, take those discussions, take those ideas, elaborate on them, select where you want to act right now, right here, something that is in the power of the team to change themselves. Assign responsibility to someone. It doesn't always need to be the manager or management. It can be anyone in the team, or it can be a group of people. But share that responsibility and quickly close that link between ideas and actions. That is the best way for you to make sure that people will find Team Pulse highly useful in their everyday work, and they just build on it and keep on using it more and more. So 3 steps essentially. First one is the weekly reflection on Friday afternoon. How was my week, and what could be done to make all our lives better next week? Discussing together with the team what kind of ideas we have got, and where should we be focusing right now, and then documenting and following up on those actions. A typical mistake that teams are doing is that they somehow connect team pulses into the let's say traditional engagement surveys that organizations have been doing. But these two are fundamentally different, and I'm on purpose highlighting this difference because it's really important. On the traditional engagement solutions, typically you have predefined topics. Someone has decided that we will be asking you along these 5 or 6 or 8 different categories. In the team pulses, that one question is really open, and it's open on purpose because it's up to the team to decide what is relevant. It's up to each member in the team to decide what is relevant for me to bring into discussions right now. The traditional engagement solutions aim to find systemic solutions where that most likely involve a lot of people, and they affect a lot of people, and they need a heavy involvement from the management to make them come true. Whereas on the team pulses, the focus is on the team. The idea is to figure out things that we can change, and we don't need to escalate it anywhere. We don't necessarily need support from anyone. Those are things that we can do on our own, and therefore it requires very little management attention. Then when you're doing large-scale changes that comes out from the engagement surveys, those changes typically take a long time to implement. Usually it's in months but it could be even in years. Whereas on the team pulses, when you're working on a weekly cycle, you need to figure out things that are quick to fix. It could be days or maximum weeks. Some things are changed within hours. It's just matter of deciding within the team that, okay, this is what we need to do. There is someone who wants to do it. Perhaps it's a very small thing, and then you've taken a step forward. Another typical difference is that the traditional engagement solutions are focusing on especially on the employee experience side. But as we all know, employee experience and customer experience go very much hand in hand. And in the Team Pulse solutions, there is no boundary. It's not making a division between employee and customer experience or improvements related to those areas. So it's perfectly fine to come up with ideas related to products, communication, whatever has to do with how we are serving our customers. And last, kind of to summarize, many of the traditional engagement surveys and the programs that are being generated based on the results are top down. So the way how it's done, the rhythm how it's done, schedule, initiatives, those come from top to down. Whereas with team pulses, it's up to the team to decide, how does this fit our work the best way? How do we want to use it? What's the best rhythm for discussing the ideas? And especially the improvement topics and the actions are something where we can actually act on ourselves. There are a lot of different questions that team pulses actually can answer. I have listed here some, but you are free to come up with your own, and most likely when your team starts using a team pulse solution, you will figure out a million more questions that actually could be addressed and answered with the solution. But it has a lot to do about learning. So what was the best idea I got during the week? How could we improve our processes? Is there something in my tools that could be changed, or in our tools that could be changed? We can even discuss and bring forward topics from our personal life. Perhaps there is something that most likely will be affecting the way how I behave or how I contribute within my team. Now, it's great to share that with your team. How could we, or how could I contribute better for succeeding with our strategy? How could we improve our teamwork? And so on and so forth. So the only limitation with the questions is basically your imagination. And in this, it's important to keep in mind that don't stuck into those categories, or don't stuck into those questions that you have been seeing in the engagement solutions that most likely are running on a yearly basis. They have their place. They are really good for some things, but team pulses are different, and you should be also considering team pulses as a different kind of tool for your team to thrive. So, in summary, I've collected here 8 tips that I think every team should keep in mind when they start with team pulses, so that they would have a good chance for succeeding with them. And many of these tips and many of the ways how you could optimally use team pulses have a lot to do with psychological safety. So it's about bringing forward ideas. It's about taking ownership of developing those ideas and developing your work. It's about sharing. It's about transparency. It's about trust. So from that perspective, a properly working team pulse solution can actually be a really good tool to building and creating even more psychological safety within the team. But the top 8 tips, starting from number 1, which I think in a way is the most important distinction you need to make. So it's not an engagement survey. So you need to approach it from the weekly reflection, weekly learning, sharing ideas perspective, and then you're giving team pulses a fair chance to succeed. Like with that ice cream cone over there, it's different from a coffee cup, from the sense that coffee cup you can easily put on the table and it stays there. Ice cream cones are meant to be held in your hand, and they don't manage that well standing on alone on your table. So engagement solutions and team pulses are 2 fundamentally different things. Another perspective which relates to the engagement surveys is that in engagement surveys you're typically covering large parts of the organization. You have a lot of participants, a lot of people, a lot of data points. So perhaps from there you can derive interesting data, interesting facts. But with the team pulses, yes, there are those smileys and there are those numbers, but ultimately on a team level, it shouldn't be a number game. It should be a question about how many and how good ideas are we able to generate and how do we act on them. So the action board within Team Pulse should be your primary focus. If you have plenty of things happening on that action board, then your Team Pulse solution is doing a pretty decent job. If you don't have actions, then I would dare to say that you're not getting that much out of your Team Pulse solution. It's not working optimally for you. As I said before, it's really important to aim for small steps. So it becomes a little bit boring over time if you are trying to tackle 2 big questions with team pulses and within your weekly rhythm. If it stays the same from one week to another, and if that continues like week over week, then it will turn people down. Whereas small changes, something that few concrete things that have actually changed from last week to this week, that will drive participation that will drive new ideas, that will drive sort of active usage of the solution that you have. If you occasionally take a longer topic, it's a good idea to bring it down into smaller parts so that you can basically see and feel the progress from one week to another. And as we have been saying before, don't limit your imagination. All kinds of topics, all kinds of improvements are welcome within Team Pulses. For example, here at Questback, we have been having good initiative at the offices to, for example, save food waste, based on some of the concrete ideas that the colleagues had over Team Pulses. Or we have been able to find and ideate new ways of communicating with our customers about important topics. So let all those ideas flourish in your Team Pulse solution. Then you will have a lot of material to work on and act on. If you want, occasionally it's okay to ask specific questions. You can ask from your team that, especially this week, when you get the QB question, think about it from this perspective. So that you can collectively zoom into something urgent, something important, something you want to be addressed right now. But in general, it's a good idea to keep the doors wide open and welcome all kinds of improvement ideas and lessons learned. As we talked before, you're getting these ideas on a weekly basis, so typically it's a good idea to also talk about them, discuss them, and have a meeting around them on a weekly basis. If not weekly, then bi-weekly, but the most important thing is that you find a way that actually fits the rhythm of your team working normally. By default, QB, for example, it's an anonymous channel. So basically you are able to raise topics anonymously, but it's probably a good idea to encourage people take ownership of their comments and ideas. That will first of all, help you to build that psychological safety that you need within the team. And it's also a lot easier to discuss and elaborate on those topics when the person raising an idea or an issue perhaps is able to describe it more, tell a little bit about the backgrounds of it and so on and so forth. So try to make it as personal as possible and as transparent as possible. And last, it's not any one person's job to work on those activities. It's a really good idea to share them with everyone in the team. People have different skills. People have different capacity that might change over time. At 1 week, someone is super busy, whereas others might have some time. On the next week, it could be vice versa. So try to use everyone's skills and everyone's capacity within the team to take ownership and lead those changes and actions that you are doing based on the Team Pulse ideas and feedback. And just keep in mind that the level of transparency, the level of discussion, it could be something new for the team. So allow it enough time to fit in. It might not work optimally this week, or not even this month, or even this quarter, but as long as you see the team making progress to the right direction, you're on the right path. And just let it become part of the how would I say, anatomy of your team's daily work. That was basically most we had today. At this point, I would be really eager to hear, what did you think about the session today? You can see there a QR code, and it should be fairly straightforward for you to pick up your phone, point it at the QR code, and then you're being asked 2 simple rating questions that should take you no more than half a minute to answer. I will give you a little while, and then I can also share the live results together with you if we have any. So let's see. We have at least a couple of answers. So we have been able to get your thoughts moving, which is great. That's the ultimate goal. We have some people who think that yes, they could definitely be sharing this webinar with their colleagues and friends. Some who are not maybe that sure, and then some who would perhaps not be doing that. Thank you for your feedback. This is really important for us when we are planning the next topics and how to address and how to discuss about these important things in the future. If you want to have a presentation to your team or your company, so we're definitely happy to do that. Just contact your contact person at Questback, or you can send an email to myself as well, and we are really happy to help. It doesn't naturally cost you anything, and we can plan it together, what and how and when we should do it. Last but not least, we've been discussing about team pulses a bit on a more generic terms. We have our own team pulse solution, which is called QB. You can find that at the address qb.app. And for the time being, when we are going through the corona crisis around us, QB is free. And I would like to especially highlight a couple of questionnaires or surveys which are specifically designed for remote workers and other topics which are highly relevant at these virus times. So about health and well-being of your employees. It's really simple. One colleague of mine was testing that from mobile phone last night, and it took a minute and a half, to send the survey to your team or to your wider organization to know how well prepared you are, how well you are supporting them in these difficult times. So if you want, go to qb.app and start using it. Both the pre-designed surveys for the corona and also the team pulses that come together with it. So thank you all for your participation.